There's a question that sits quietly in the minds of many believers, a question few dare to speak aloud because it feels too heavy, too mysterious. If God is all-powerful, why doesn't he just destroy Satan? Why allow the enemy of our souls to still breathe, to still tempt, to still roam across the earth? We see evil rise, lies spread, hearts break, and somewhere deep down, we wonder why God, who spoke the universe into existence, hasn't spoken one final word to end all of it. But here's where the mystery begins to unfold. The Bible doesn't describe a weak God struggling against a strong adversary. It reveals a sovereign creator who could end all rebellion with a single breath, but chooses not to, for reasons far greater than human eyes can see. That choice isn't born from hesitation or fear. It's born from perfection, justice, and love, so deep that even his enemies exist within the boundaries of his purpose. Think about that for a moment. The same God who flooded the earth, who rained fire on Sodom, who parted the Red Sea and crushed Pharaoh's army, has allowed Satan to survive thousands of years of defiance. Every day that Satan still exists is a day permitted, not uncontrolled. And that means there's a purpose behind the patience, a divine reasoning woven through every battle between light and darkness. This isn't about doubting God's power. It's about discovering his heart. Because when we ask, why doesn't God kill Satan? We're not just asking about divine authority. We're asking about the nature of God himself. We're asking why he does what he does, how justice truly works in the kingdom of heaven, and what it means for our own walk of faith. The answer, as we'll see, isn't simple. It stretches across eternity, from before the fall of Lucifer to the final pages of Revelation. It weaves through the cross, the resurrection, the waiting, and the war still raging in unseen realms. It's a story that reveals how truth must be proven before all creation, how love must be freely chosen, and how victory means nothing if it sacrifices righteousness along the way. So, today, let's open our hearts and our Bibles to look beyond the surface. Let's set aside the assumption that power alone defines God, and instead learn how his patience is power, how his timing is justice, and how his silence often carries the loudest truth. Because by the end of this journey, you'll see that it's not that God cannot kill Satan, but that God, in his wisdom, will not until the entire universe understands why love had to be stronger than force. This is the mystery of divine restraint. And when you understand it, you'll never see the battle between heaven and hell the same way again. Number 1, the nature of God. Justice, not just power. When we think of God, the first thing that often comes to mind is his omnipotence, his ability to do anything, to create galaxies, to speak life into existence. And yet the Bible shows us that God's power is inseparable from his justice and holiness. He doesn't act arbitrarily, and he doesn't wield his might like a weapon without purpose. God's actions are always consistent with his character, because power without righteousness is not divine. It's chaos. This is crucial when we ask why God does not simply destroy Satan. It's not because he cannot. He could wipe out the devil in an instant, but doing so would contradict the principles of justice that govern heaven and the universe. God's nature is holy, pure, and perfectly just. Every judgment, every act of wrath is measured precise and according to the eternal law of righteousness. Consider the scriptures. Deuteronomy 32:4 calls God the rock. His work is perfect, for all his ways are justice. Psalm 89:14 says that righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Even Romans 9:14-21 reminds us that God's actions are never arbitrary, but designed to manifest his glory and mercy. God's restraint, his patience, even in allowing Satan to operate, is an extension of his perfect justice. When we see evil persist, it's easy to think God is slow or powerless. But the truth is that his restraint demonstrates his perfection. The delay in judgment serves a purpose. It ensures that when justice is finally carried out, it is complete, irrefutable, and glorifies His holiness. God doesn't simply act because He can. He acts because it aligns with His character and the eternal plan He has for creation. The lesson is clear. God's nature is not measured only by His power to destroy, but by His wisdom to act in perfect justice. Satan's existence is temporary. Yes, but it serves to reveal the depth of God's righteousness. The Almighty's strength is undeniable, but His moral and spiritual integrity is what sets Him apart. Number 2. The legal structure of heaven. Heaven is not a place of chaos or unchecked power. The Bible portrays it as a kingdom of law, order, and divine governance. Even when it comes to dealing with Satan, God's actions are deliberate, measured, and consistent with His divine justice. Satan may seem powerful in his rebellion, but his actions unfold within the limits that God permits. This is not weakness, it is law, structure, and ultimate control. Take the story of Job, for example. Satan appears before God and is allowed to test Job's faith. Job 1:6-12. God does not destroy Satan on the spot, even though He could. Instead, He sets boundaries, issues limitations, and allows the trial to happen under His supervision. This shows us that God operates like a divine judge in a perfect courtroom. Every accusation is weighed. Every action has its consequences, and the truth is always revealed in full. The legal framework of heaven ensures that God's justice is visible and undeniable. Satan's rebellion is public. His lies are exposed, and every soul witnesses the consequences of sin. This is why God does not simply act out of power. He acts in accordance with law, truth, and cosmic order. The cross itself is a legal act. Jesus' sacrifice not only redeemed humanity but also legally defeated Satan's claim over the world. God's restraint, then, is a display of His wisdom. He could have ended the rebellion instantly, but doing so would bypass the legal, moral, and spiritual processes that demonstrate His righteousness to all creation. Satan's existence, though temporary, plays a key role in proving the justice of God to angels, humans, and the universe. The takeaway is profound. God's power is absolute, but His actions are always measured. Legal, righteous. Satan's presence is not a failure of God's might. It is a testament to the order, justice, and integrity that define His kingdom. Number 3. The role of free will. The test of creation. One of the most profound truths in Scripture is that God did not create a universe of puppets. He created beings capable of choice. Angels and humans alike were given free will, the freedom to love or to reject, to obey or to rebel. And it is precisely this freedom that makes the existence of Satan necessary, at least temporarily. Lucifer, the angel who became Satan, chose pride over obedience. His rebellion wasn't a mistake God had to correct. It was a choice, an exercise of the very free will God values. Isaiah 14:12-15 and Ezekiel 28:12-19 describe His fall not as an act of divine oversight, but as the result of His own pride and desire to exalt Himself above God. Immediate destruction would have negated the principle God set in motion. Love and worship must be freely given to have meaning. Free will is also essential for humanity. Adam and Eve were given the choice to obey or disobey God, and Satan's presence was necessary to make that choice real. Without the possibility of rebellion, obedience would be meaningless. Love without choice is not love. Obedience without freedom is not obedience. The continued existence of Satan highlights God's wisdom. He allows the consequences of rebellion and sin to play out, so that the full impact of choices is seen. Every temptation, every act of deception, serves as a lesson to angels and humans alike. Through free will, God ensures that the triumph of righteousness is not imposed but chosen, witnessed and celebrated by all creation. God's restraint is not weakness. It is a profound expression of His respect for the freedom He granted His creation. Every day that Satan exists, every challenge and temptation is part of the divine design to reveal truth, love, and the eternal consequences of sin. Number 4. The Great Controversy. Cosmic evidence before judgment. The story of Satan is not just a personal struggle, it is a cosmic drama. The Bible describes it as a great controversy, a battle between good and evil that unfolds before the eyes of all creation. Every angel, every human, every spiritual being witnesses the choices, the lies, and the consequences of rebellion. God's restraint in this cosmic battle is deliberate. Satan's actions, his deceptions and temptations, are allowed so that the truth about sin and rebellion is fully revealed. Revelation 12:10 describes the final exposure of Satan as the accuser of our brothers being cast down. But before that ultimate judgment, his activity serves a purpose. The universe must understand why evil cannot prevail and why God's justice is perfect. Even now, Satan's existence demonstrates the consequences of rebellion. His temptations reveal the depths of human and angelic choice, the stark contrast between obedience and pride. If God destroyed him immediately, the lesson of sin and the necessity of righteousness would be incomplete. By allowing this controversy to unfold, God is proving to all creation that evil is real, rebellion has consequences, and his ultimate plan of justice and love will prevail. This cosmic perspective helps us understand God's patience. He does not tolerate evil because he is weak. He restrains it because the stakes are eternal. Every action of Satan, every challenge, is an opportunity for humanity to witness God's justice and for faith to be tested. When the final judgment comes, it will not only be just, it will be a demonstration for all creation that God's victory is absolute, righteous, and glorifying to his name. Number 5. The Cross. Where Satan was defeated but not yet destroyed. Everything changes at the cross of Jesus Christ. This is the moment where Satan's power was decisively broken, even though his final destruction is still future. Through Jesus' death and resurrection, Satan was legally and spiritually defeated. John 12:31 says, "Now is the judgment of this world, now will the ruler of this world be cast out." Colossians 2:15 tells us that Christ disarmed the powers and authorities, triumphing over them by the cross. But notice this: Satan was defeated, not yet destroyed. Think of it like a criminal whose guilt has been proven in court. The verdict is final, the sentence is certain, but the execution of that sentence is timed perfectly. Satan continues to exist, not because God lacks power, but because the full demonstration of God's justice and wisdom has not yet been completed. The cross reveals God's strategy and patience. By allowing Satan to continue temporarily, God exposes the lies he has spread, that God is unjust, unloving, or powerless. Through the sacrifice of Jesus, the universe sees the truth. God is loving, righteous, and all-powerful. Satan's activity now serves as a reminder of the stakes of rebellion and the ultimate triumph of God's plan. Every day that Satan exists is an opportunity for God's truth to be witnessed, for humanity to choose faith over deception, and for angels and all of creation to see the stark contrast between rebellion and righteousness. The cross is where Satan's defeat is guaranteed, but God's timing ensures that when his final destruction comes, it will be a perfect, undeniable demonstration of divine justice. Number 6. God's patience. The time of grace. One of the most difficult truths to grasp is that God allows Satan to continue temporarily because of his patience. 2 Peter 3:9 tells us that the Lord is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. God's delay in executing final judgment is not a sign of weakness or indecision, it is an expression of his mercy. Even Satan's continued presence serves a higher purpose. It gives humanity and all creation the chance to witness the full consequences of sin and rebellion, and to freely choose righteousness. Every act of temptation and every encounter with evil allows us to exercise faith, obedience, and discernment. In essence, God's patience is a gift. It buys time for salvation, redemption, and the ultimate display of his justice. Prophecy is unfolding even now, as evil continues to reveal its true nature. The persistent influence of Satan exposes sin, pride, and rebellion, allowing God's eventual judgment to be recognized as perfectly righteous. The delay is not arbitrary. It is deliberate. It demonstrates that God's timing is perfect, that he is in control, and that his love extends even to those who oppose him. God's patience teaches us about his character. It is not indulgence of evil. It is strategic, purposeful, and infinitely wise. Every day that Satan still exists is another day that God's grace can touch a heart, another day that faith can be exercised, another day that the universe can witness the perfection of his timing. God could end evil instantly, but his wisdom and love choose to wait until the appointed time, ensuring that when judgment comes, it will be both just and glorifying. Number 7. The final judgment. God's victory through justice. All the patience, restraint, and strategy God has demonstrated points to this ultimate moment, the final judgment of Satan. Revelation 20:10 paints the picture of the culmination of the great controversy. Satan, the deceiver, is thrown into the lake of fire, facing the eternal consequences of his rebellion. This is the moment when God's victory over evil will be absolute, undeniable, and public. The timing is crucial. God does not destroy Satan prematurely, because the universe must witness the full truth. Every angel, every soul, every part of creation will see the complete consequences of rebellion and the perfection of God's justice. The delay ensures that God's character, his holiness, wisdom, and love, is fully revealed. This is why Satan continues to exist even after his defeat at the cross. The story must be completed. The lesson must be fully demonstrated, and the universe must understand why evil cannot stand. God's final judgment is not arbitrary. It is the fulfillment of prophecy, the confirmation of truth, and the vindication of his righteous rule. Satan's ultimate destruction glorifies God because it shows that even the most cunning and proud rebel cannot overcome the Creator. God's timing ensures that the judgment is perfect in both justice and demonstration. The victory is not only ours, it is universal, eternal, and undeniable. The key message here is profound. God could have ended Satan at any moment, but his wisdom, patience, and justice dictate otherwise. Satan's destruction is certain, but it must occur in God's perfect timing, showing the universe that love and righteousness triumph over pride and rebellion. Conclusion: the God who wins without compromising his character. So why hasn't God killed Satan yet? The answer is not about power. It's about purpose, justice, and love. God's restraint is deliberate, his timing perfect, and his plan unfailing. Every moment that Satan still exists serves to reveal truth, allow free will, demonstrate the consequences of sin, and glorify the righteousness of God. The cross ensured Satan's defeat, but God's patience allows the universe to witness the full story. The great controversy, free will, the legal framework of heaven, and the cosmic evidence of rebellion, all of it points to one eternal truth. God's justice is perfect, and his love is unshakable. The destruction of evil will come, but only at the appointed time, ensuring that the victory reflects the fullness of God's glory. We live in a world where evil still whispers and darkness still tempts. But the war is already won. Satan is defeated, his fate sealed, and every act of rebellion only highlights the magnificence of God's wisdom and justice. Take heart, because this is the God we serve. A God who is all-powerful, perfectly just, infinitely loving, and eternally patient. The enemy may still roam for a time, but ultimate victory belongs to Jesus. And when that final day comes, every soul will see that God's timing, his restraint, and his justice were flawless from the beginning. The message is clear. God can destroy Satan at any moment, but God, in his infinite wisdom and love, chooses to wait so that all creation might witness the glory of his perfect justice. That is a victory worth waiting for. a truth worth believing, and a God worth trusting with everything in our hearts.